Why can't you be sad if there's no Aeon in the game? You could.
Well, whoever dies, it's going to be fine.
You could just be sad that Turin, who was brave enough to take Aeon and not rush Swift Winds or transports or anything else that was useful, is going to lose in this game. But I guess that's up to you. The other person in this game is Petric, because we're in the finals of the losers bracket. So the winner of this game will go on to fight farms in the epic conclusion of the tournament. Whether that be the semifinal or the final depends, because the loser has to win twice. And both of these guys are going first land. Heaven, you want to talk about the map a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Sorry. Still a bit.
Do you still need to recover some from the obs?
That has the potential to deliver the killing blow, but it's other things I need to recover from, I guess. Alright, so this map, it's got mill reclaim, which is not very interesting. It's got a lot of reclaim around your base, which is very interesting, I guess. You want to have many factories spamming. There's side reclaim for both players. There are some builds that attempt to steal it. That's players who are going to assist their first land factory with the ACU. And whenever the engineer is rolling off a land factory, the ACU is going to construct a pigeon or a mix. And as soon as the next engineer is started and the structure is finished, the ACU assists again. This is how people attempt to steal reclaim. I don't think we're going to see that here. No, we aren't. You want to make transport because you have several important expansions. You can either not reach without a transport or reach more easily with a transport, such as this hydro. And I guess this is a bit of a early spam combat ACU, later T2 air, TML, and even later T3 drop simulator, until stuff escalates because people have insane eco and start building large-scale T3 pushes or experimentals.
At first glance, it does kind of look like the mexes are too spread out for that, but I guess when you count, you've got the 4 in your base, 5 maybe if you count the forward one, and then you've got a total of 8 over to your side expansion. If you can keep control of even just 10% of the map, you can still have a pretty substantial eco, which you've probably ramped up with all the reclaim that's available to you. So things can get out of hand, and then of course, once the map starts collapsing and there's tons of land units everywhere, things tend to snowball.
I find it strange that Turin, by tendency, goes for early air. It always opens with a fighter. I guess he's really risk averse. Perhaps it's also because he plays Aeon a bit. But I guess when you go for early air, opening bomber is typically better. Maybe he's just doing that for a faster scout. I'm not so sure. But when you have early air and you don't use it for bombers, it's kind of a dead factory sometimes.
Well, I mean, if you're protecting yourself from potential bombers on the other side, then it might not be a dead factory, because I tend to go earlier interceptor in most cases as well, because I just hate the thought of losing my expansion years to bombers. It irritates me to no end, so maybe I fit into that risk-averse category as well. A little bit of a unit engagement on the front line, roughly even number of tanks, but a couple more flowing in from the rear. Petric reinforcing his own forces, and that is probably going to outmatch what Winston has in the center. Turin's queued his ACU over to the left, same as Petric has queued his to the right, although slightly, ever so slightly faster. And both of these guys are going to get their expansions locked down with a handful of mass extractors and then factories out on the edges. Reclaim, of course, sucked up by the ACU over there on the side groupings that Heaven mentioned earlier. I don't really see anything exceptionally different about these guys. They're both playing very safely, lots of land build power, a little bit of air build power, just enough to stay protected with, and easy combat in the center, not really venturing forth on anything.
I think what's different about them is the expansion style. Like this cliff build on the plateau is relatively early. I typically don't like having a factory there. I prefer going for a drop with Arty and 1 or 2 engineers. I just think that's cheaper, and I want to reuse the transport elsewhere. So I think going for a cliff build on that expansion is a bit of a statement, especially when it's so early.
Yeah, if you just drop the 6 units there, you really only need 1 artillery, and then the 5 engineers can build the mexes, get the reclaim, and then cap them once they go to T2. So you don't really need the factory at all.
Yeah.
We might see a Snoop kill an engineer over on the right-hand side. It is ever so slowly scratching away at the paint on the surface of this engine.
Right, yeah, I guess.
Or damage at a time, Link.
I think it's pretty surprising how Turin had faster air than Petrich. And Petrich actually went triple land. I think factory number 4 was air. But both players have very similar land and air unit count. I would have expected the faster air to make more of a difference, but things even out apparently. Must have been from this initial fight that probably went better for Turin than for Petrich. And this is how the land unit count even out. And in terms of air units, it's probably because of the chain sport. But in the end, this is still going to result in a net advantage for Turin. Turin actually managed to steal the reclaim from Petrich. And Turin is now dropping this plateau. So he's interacting with both plateaus a lot, actually.
Yes, since he does have 3 tanks, he's going to be able to kill off not only the engineer, but also the artillery there, and keep Petrick from securing that plateau. I like Petrick utilizing that 1 transport so effectively, dropping 3 engineers at 3 different locations, plus an artillery to try to grab the plateau early. Unfortunate that it did not work out for him.
Is he not suicide? No, he's not. I would have been so sad if he suicided those tanks into the PD.
Looks like Petrick, at least at the very earliest portion of the game, does have a map control advantage, even if it is a slight one. He is also ahead on economy and reclaim by, well, 2 mass per tick now. It was 5 to 6 just a couple of minutes ago. And he's also ahead by about 1,000 reclaim. So it's leaning towards the north ever so slightly, but Turin absolutely proved last game that he is more than capable of coming out ahead. And actually, I retract my earlier statement about reclaim, because now Petrick is actually about 200 reclaim behind.
I gotta say, this is stellar eco management from both players. Both bars not full, not empty, not stalling. So actually both of them making use of what they have without any inefficiency. That's how it's supposed to be.
Might be a bit of a power stall situation for Turin, though. Nope, once he mass stalls, it's actually pretty good balance. Well done there.
Now Turin got a bit ambitious on the spending. It's
just
the factory. It's the factory.
When you're in the early portions of 1 versus 1 games, especially on a map like this, where you have to think about, I've got to cover all of these different expansions, I have to make sure that I keep these different routes of access secure, you have to get the most possible use out of every single factory and every tick of mass. And both of these guys are doing that. So it's going to come down to a little bit of micro and where exactly they choose to place their units, how well they react with what they have. It's one of the things that I think a lot of people run into problems with, is where you are able to manage your economy so finely that you can have enough factories to produce all of the units that you need, but also not too many where you're stalling, and not so few that you have to rely on mass extractor upgrades to use your economy, and your opponent comes out, 20, 25 tanks ahead over the course of time. So it's really a fine balancing act. WinstonSmith is going to push his ACU up through the center, so he's probably going to be able to win out on this early fight, but whether through scouting or through intuition, Petrick is also moving his ACU to the same area, so neither one of these guys still are going to come ahead. I like the T1 point defense on the south side. It was able to deny a push that ran right into it, even succeeding in killing the T1 artillery that was over that way.
Yeah, just a random thought. While he was building the point defense and the power in his base, his eco looked a lot different. So perhaps having so many engineers in that south expansion is a bit of an overreaction. If he scouts more, like if he scouts earlier, he can just dedicate less engineers to building the point defense, and his eco is going to be fine, and it's not going to stall. I think well, that's going to be something for the next generation of players to figure out, because these guys are pretty much world-class FAF players, and still there's things that can be improved.
Absolutely.
So this game is actually, like, in terms of a skill ceiling, it's very difficult to reach that, I guess.
A little bit of a push and pull tug of war going on in the center. Winston and Petrick holding almost identical numbers of units and full health on their commanders. So trying to decide who's going to come out ahead on that is not an easy task, but we do have a T2 shift from Whiteheart. He's got his first pillars out of the factory already, and I don't see a T2 shift on the south side. Looks like Winston or
There is none. There's none. He's not going for T2. Yeah, just spamming T1.
Yes.
It's kind of interesting to see how Petric is actually ecoing, and Turin is focusing on raiding. But apparently Petric has the upper hand if you look at mass count, the income rate. So even though Turin got his own plateau and denied the enemy plateau for a while, ecoing seems to be stronger if executed well.
Looks like there has been a T2 air shift for Winston though. He's building a Janus, so that is going to be able to cause some devastating damage to these groups that Petric's got on the north side. Look at the napalm spread. That's going to be 10 T1 units destroyed or heavily damaged, and that bomber is going to get a second pass. That is the strength of the Janus right there, the massive area of effect.
There's quite a clock though, because as soon as more pillars are out, the Janus is going to expire in utility. It's just not going to stay as strong when there's more T2 land on the field. So I guess, like, T2 air is kind of meta on this map. Most people go T2 air instead of T2 land and get T3 land later after like a long T2 air stage. But I guess
Winston's going to be able to take away the expansions on the right-hand side, so Petric is going to lose some mass in that regard. But as far as the center of the map is concerned, we've now got 5 pillars grouped up with a handful of T1. Probably not going to be very successful through the middle, but on the left side, Winston's also going to be losing his expansion to the pillars and a couple of T1 artillery over there. Janus going to try to come in and clean it up, but not going to be fast enough.
Pretty clean expansion trade here. A bit of a defeat in detail disadvantage against Petric in the center. Could have better positioning with the pillars instead of spreading them like this.
Winston just built a energy storage, so he's going to be able to overcharge any pillars that come near him.
Yeah, this little group of pillars in the center is going to die, so perhaps the land didn't work out so well for Petric. But I think it's going to be difficult for Turin to capitalize on his T2 air. Like, Petric knows it's present now, and I would have a hard time making good use of it as UEF. Janus is just kind of situational.
I think a Janus would be well placed in the back end base because a single pass can take out a whole lot of T1 power generators. Since there is a T2 PGen online as well, 2 Januses crossfired could take it out in one pass. And it looks like we've got it coming. 3 Januses laying in the damage on that PGen.
No, the question is he going to need it? Or has he been overflowing power?
Oh no! Janus got killed, so it's not going to be able to take that.
Turin, officially the unluckiest person of this tournament. And not that it matters now that he's UEF, but still a bit sad.
If he had just been able to buy 1 more second for that bomber, he could have put Petric at a pretty severe disadvantage. Petric's actually got the T2 upgrade on his ACU. He's going to start building triads over on the right to lock these expansions back down as Winston goes directly for the base. Do you think this is a good idea? I mean, I kind of tend to think it's overextending, but he's got a lot of forces with him.
I think Turin is significantly more broken than me, because while I only had to watch what happened, he had to play what happened. So I think he doesn't care anymore. He's just going to right-click and hope for the best. Is what I would do as well.
Alright, well, unupgraded commander, not even a gun comm, so he's going to be in a bit of a pickle here if his unit count decreases too much, and that is exactly what it is doing, because there are already several T1 point defense online in the base, along with a handful of T2 tanks and Mongoose. So he's going to have a very difficult time coming out ahead on this.
Very aggressive play, and not a lot of art in the mix. There's some, but it could work, honestly. It could work.
He needs to bring his other units up from the south. There, he just pulled them. He kind of forgot that all of his units were down there. 9,000 health and shrinking. Whiteheart now pulling up behind with that T2 upgrade. Even though he doesn't have gun, he can build T1 point defense so quickly with that commander that he might be able to box Winston in. Winston gonna fall back to the water on the left, I think.
If I was him, I would go to the water on the right, because it's closest.
He might actually be pulling for the plateau. He did succeed in getting the T2 power generator and one of the T2 mass extractors offline. Heavy damage to all of the build power. So it's not the end of the world, but he's gonna have a hard time getting out of here alive.
He's going to stay alive, I think. Petrich is respecting his opponent quite a lot. He just scouted and realized that this push was all hot air. So I guess now he's chasing, but
2,000 HP and shrinking.
Yeah, I think he's going to die, I guess. I think Petrich just thought that nobody can be so insane to push without backup. That's why he was careful with chasing. Some quality comm blocking.
The T1 bombers might actually get the kill on this one. Yep, there it goes. Oh, man. Win by T1 bombers. Petrick advances to the final rounds. Shame about Winston, though. I think you're absolutely right. He just got completely destroyed by that last game.
Right.
That is going to wrap everything up for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, feel free to drop a like and share it with someone. If you want to support the channel, catch the streams, or join the Discord, check out the links in the description. Thank you all for being at least partially insane, and I will see you in the next one.